But really what we're also talking about, and what's pertinent to today, is the advent of this thing that we're calling the AI PC. How much of this is marketing? I think yes, some of it is obviously marketing because they're in the business of selling PCs. But what we are truly seeing is something different, because there's changes happening on the hardware level, and we'll get into all of that, but literally at the chip level that's affecting the capabilities of PCs greatly, and that these sort of new modern tasks require a different kind of computation. Couple that up with Windows 10 not being just, of course, end of life, but end of support. This is one where choices have got to be made. So these two things are happening. People are going to be under pressure to buy the latest and greatest equipment. Certainly we need to look into what exactly is the difference. Why would you want a piece of kit like that? What does good look like? And how do you manage this potentially for hundreds of people, even thousands of people, over a potentially very large and diverse company?
Hello, and welcome to our latest episode of Making It Happen by Sims. I'm your host, Mel, and I'm delighted to be joined by our colleague Elliott Jones from Kingston Technology and Rafael Bloom from Digital Works Group. Thank you for joining us. Today, we're going to be discussing the hot topic of AI PCs and how businesses can prepare for the Windows 11 transition. So thank you very much both for joining us today. Just a quick overview. I think I've just highlighted sort of where you're from, but just give us a quick introduction to you both. So Rafael, I'm come to you first.
Thanks, Mel. Nice to be here. I'm Rafael Bloom. I'm a strategy advisor with Digital Works Group. In the AI data and automation space. So good to be talking about AI PCs in particular. And what I do is I help guide organizations through the strategic, risk and all the other stuff that we're going to talk about that's associated with these kinds of challenges.
Fabulous. Thank you. And we'll come to you, Elliott.
Thank you, and fantastic to be here today. So I'm Elliott Jones in the B2B strategic marketing team here at Kingston Technology. My role covers server, client PC, and data security here at Kingston. I've been in marketing within the tech industry for almost 20 years. So AI PC is the next phase of a very exciting journey, and can't wait to get stuck in.
Fabulous. Well, it sounds like we've got the right people for the job, which is great. So firstly, let's just sort of kick off then. Can you explain how AI is currently being integrated into business PCs and the main benefits it offers? Rafael, I'll come to you first to answer that.
Sure. It's a huge question. I mean, we could talk in many ways because it really depends what sector you're dealing with, of course. There are some sector-specific requirements that make the advent of AI something that is maybe more feared than in other organizations. If you're in a marketing organization, having something that writes for you so easily is great. But if you're in a healthcare organization, you've got to watch where the data's going. But really what we're also talking about, and what's pertinent to today, is the advent of this thing that we're calling the AI PC. How much of this is marketing? I think yes, some of it is obviously marketing because they're in the business of selling PCs. But what we are truly seeing is something different, because there's changes happening on the hardware level, and we'll get into all of that, but literally at the chip level that's affecting the capabilities of PCs greatly, and that these sort of new modern tasks require a different kind of computation. Couple that up with Windows 10 not being just, of course, end of life, but end of support. This is one where choices have got to be made. So these two things are happening. People are going to be under pressure to buy the latest and greatest equipment. Certainly we need to look into what exactly is the difference. Why would you want a piece of kit like that? What does good look like? And how do you manage this potentially for hundreds of people, even thousands of people, over a potentially very large and diverse company?
Absolutely. And anything to add to that, Elliott?
Well, really, I think Rafi put it really well. I think overall, and again, from my perspective, and certainly some of the messaging that I've been talking around AI PCs, yeah, the mix between hype and purpose. Again, to echo Rafi's points, that there is a good mix of both, but ultimately it offers autonomy and privacy over data versus sending data to a public cloud. Productivity on an individual basis, so no longer getting a very generic form of small language model. Actually, you can have experiences that are personal to you and how you work, and also security as well. We are seeing kind of more and more appliances or applications of security features within AI PCs, which allow the PCs themselves to detect and nullify any threats. From a technical standpoint, yeah, the NPU is the main driver of an AI PC, taking workloads away from the CPU and the GPU so that you get a more efficient experience. Now, it's quite interesting because we are starting to see an arms race between the x86 chipsets from Intel and AMD and Qualcomm and the ARM chips that are available or have just come out as part of Microsoft Copilot Plus PCs. So we have a very interesting time ahead, but ultimately it does allow you to have a better AI experience closer to the source, which is your organization.
Great, that's really good, and thank you, because you've highlighted sort of some of those benefits as well. Rafi, have you got sort of any other sort of challenges that sort of businesses will face with this new technology?
Yeah, again, it depends what level you're talking about. The general use of a PC, let's break it down. A lot of it is just using Excel, using Word, browsing the internet. That does cover an awful lot of what we do. And within browse the internet, we've now got to include the fact that when we go on the internet, we might be using an AI. That has been happening anyway. So this sort of this generation of PCs is being brought on to tailor people's experiences, certainly. So one example would be AI's ability to process video. So for example, our backgrounds, the fact that I've got a blurred background, there's a bit of AI in that, because there's an algorithm that can detect a background. Now, is it the same AI as going to stop someone hacking your computer? Well, of course not. So that's why I'm at pains to illustrate that if you're in one particular industry, you might be doing things that you wouldn't in another. So where risk comes in is where we're going to call it shadow AI, for want of a better, just in shadow IT, you're a company that has decided that you're going to do things on SharePoint or you're going to do things on Google, and then you find that you've got a department that's gone off and used Dropbox. The governance of this and exposure to cloud has always been a security risk, and we can see with things like CrowdStrike that you can even be using the right tools, and those are the things that bring you down. So more complexity, yet everyone is demanding a swift access via their PCs to AI things like simultaneous translation, like reply to my emails, like semantic search. So this morning I was looking for a document and it took some time.
We've all been there.
we've all been there. And instead of saying, having to go back through directories and so forth, being able to say, to press a button and say, can you show me the file I was working on with Steve last week? Right. And it knows who Steve is, and it's all very contextual and it's all very goal oriented. You've got one AI, presumably that's an agent that's doing stuff for you, right? Again, a very different kind of use case. The very bottom level, the person that says, can you generate some text for me? That might be perfectly innocent. But on the other side of it, it might be wrong. There are risks of AI hallucinations. There's risk of departure from predetermined brand guidelines. And there's also the risk of sounding very bland. As someone that writes and occasionally like this talks when asked to, human distinctiveness is the thing that we're all worried about. And at the moment, I'm not so worried because there are choices that I make that I'm still pretty confident an AI wouldn't. But it's the fact that there are things being baked into the operating system now. So, for example, just to move away from the world of Windows, Apple are finally going to do intelligence, but you've got to have an Apple i15 Pro or later. Right? So again, there's that link. But you won't be able to run these things properly without the appropriate chipset. And that's why we need to discuss the NPU. We need to discuss what that really means, what's actually going on locally, and this shift away from the cloud that you mentioned. That means that we're actually going to be running AI locally, what that involves. Sorry for the unnecessarily complex answer, but it's a big question. It's a big question.
Well, no, absolutely, and I think that's probably what the audience is looking for, and I think there is so sort of there's information out there, but I think if people are looking to transition, I think it is, well, what's best for me. So obviously AI PCs is one factor, and clearly you've stated so there are benefits, but there are risk factors to consider as well. So businesses really do have to consider those carefully. I suppose from sort of on another perspective, sort of it being early in its product life cycle, some may consider that upgrading their existing IT equipment would a better strategy would be to upgrade what they already have, and obviously that has, I suppose, financially and environmentally some better factors to consider there. Elliott, could you just sort of maybe state some of the options that are available to businesses that aren't the new shiny new AI PCs?
Yeah, absolutely. And so firstly, just some kind of positioning as well, because again, it's I kind of inferred an arms race between x86 and ARM as kind of chipsets. With that, there are inherent challenges potentially if you have internal applications within your organization that can run on an x86 platform, but with the Prism emulator, which certainly Copilot Plus PCs include, there's no guarantee that they will work straight out of the box. So that's another kind of consideration in terms of, as things kind of self-determine and kind of shake out and the arms race between the different CPU manufacturers, that plays out in itself. But for the individual or the IT manager within the organization, the options are fairly clear in terms of, well, you can go ahead and buy the latest and greatest what's available now in AI PC. But that's no guarantee that the seismic change that we're anticipating is going to happen in not too distant amount of time as more and more software applications grow and demand more from the device itself. Buying yourself some time by actually upgrading your existing assets, so your laptops or desktop PC, that might not be a bad interim solution. By that, you get to plan ahead and obviously educate your employees in terms of what's right and wrong in terms of using AI, particularly important with sensitive data. But you avoid the risk of potentially buying twice. And now we're in a situation where AIPC is a very broad term, and today I can buy a 256 gig of storage with 8 gigs of RAM. That's going to be woefully insufficient. But equally, you can buy 32, 64 with 2 terabytes of storage. So there's quite a wide chasm in terms of the deltas between the two. So this kind of confusion means that buying yourself some time may not be a bad shout in the short term, whilst obviously things develop and there's a bit more clarity within the industry.
Yeah, sorry, Rafi, it was good.
I think there's also something to be said for seeking clarity within your own organization. So have you actually set a strategy? And this question that I wanted to say before about who's actually doing the change, because it's not just an IT question anymore. If it's just a question of buying laptops, you go and you buy a laptop and you don't care, but there are specific things that people are going to be doing now that are leveraging AI. So just last week, the way that things move, you can now download and run the 8B model of one of the, I'm not going to do any sort of product placement, one of the main 3 providers. You can download a local model, and that you can actually download that to a fairly modest computer. But how's it going to run? The reason why you would do that, of course, is not to expose your data anywhere else because of the otherwise public nature of these platforms, or unconfirmed nature of how they're getting their data, because there's a lot of scraping going on and the users themselves are interesting. So being able to run a model locally, is that a requirement for you? If it's not a requirement for you, it's not just a question of knowing that, it's a question of documenting it. It's a question of going through the organization, doing a role by role, department by department, I hate to say the word in public, but audit, or let's call it a discovery exercise. That sounds a bit friendlier. And actually having a conversation that involves not just heads of IT and the CFO who's going to pay for this IT. It's actually got to be a bigger conversation, not least because the responsibility for data processing doesn't necessarily rest with those people. It can rest with, the chief revenue officer. It can, it could be the head of research. Responsibility for what happens with AI is, of course, it's a sort of a bit of a fluid situation at the moment. The point being, without the conversation happening at some level within an organization, and hopefully that conversation involving, as you rightly said, education. Have people used AI? Because I hear a lot of words like it's terrifying. AI, have you seen what AI can do? It's scary. And I remember people talking about other waves of technology as being scary. And I know it's kind of colloquial to call something scary, but what is that reaction? It's actually got to be grappled with, because it's not going away. So if people are thinking it's scary, really you need to know a bit more. And maybe you need to use AI tools for yourself and actually join the party. That needs to happen again in a guided, educative, it's part of continual professional development, I would say as well. So we're really urging people to sort of try and roll out even very basic level discovery exercises just to get the conversation started.
And I think that's a really interesting point that you've made there, that like you say, the traditional sort of IT, what's required would be led by the IT department. But I know that within, the various departments we have here, there are going to be tools that will make your individual job, more efficient. Like you say, you will have access to so many more things. And by having that conversation and being part of that conversation means that there won't be any surprises, I guess, further down the line. And if you take people on the journey with you, then those risk factors that I think we've highlighted, hopefully that education is done, as a starting point, and then people, don't make those mistakes when it is rolled out. So very, very good point there. Thank you. So I guess sort of linked to that, we've sort of discussed the sort of Windows upgrade happening. So Windows 10 is sort of enter support is approaching in 2025. So what steps should businesses be taking to prepare for that? Rafi, I'll come to you.
Sure. It's a big one because of course it's really here and it's not going away. So I think what we spoke about before is being either a company that has always the latest, greatest, shiniest new thing, and lovely if that's you. But if you're trying to run things, and I'd say it's not just about cost, it's about the environment as well, and not just upgrading for the point of it, or because there's an arms race going on, as you wisely put it. There's a lot of pressure. And I think it boils down into finding your part on the upgrade cycle and managing it properly. What I mean by this is you can be a tail rider. So you know that that's where you live. You know that the average life of your equipment is going to be above them, or older than the average. And that's deliberate because you have a plan. And that means that you are more likely to move from an end of life, end of support Windows 10 machine to a Windows 11 machine that may have started life as a basic grade, 8 and 128 even, right? It might have started like that. But you can stick an NVMe drive on it. And, you find that really something that comes in a shiny new box it's not just unwise for economic reasons. It's just a silly decision. It's something perfectly good. So just having the strategy and knowing how to run an end of tail strategy, you're going to have to deal with some stuff.
Yeah.
But that is something you've planned for. So again, I would say what to do about it is work out who is going to need the shiny new stuff. And that's why it's not just about IT. It's really about understanding what people do department by department, working out, if your HR department doesn't want to do things outside of your firewall, or your compliance department doesn't want to, that means you're going to have to do some stuff locally with AI, which is going to influence your choices. So, yeah, have the conversation, but there are multiple strategies available at various points on the curve. So obviously you are going to have to be upgrading. It doesn't have to be as costly an exercise as that. You could buy the the lower end of the market and do the upgrades yourself. That would be a perfectly valid way to proceed.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And I suppose if we're talking about upgrades, so coming to you, Elliott, how can the right solutions like memory and storage enhance overall system efficiency for end user experience?
Yeah, so I think it comes down to, and I think Rafi put it really well, is almost, and I'll coin his term as well in terms of discovery. So ensuring that the right people have the right experience is key. There's nothing more frustrating than say somebody in your creative team or somebody who has high throughput for whether it's storage or memory, having a poor experience and consistently so. So this is why NVMe or increased storage can really increase productivity and overall employee happiness. That said, I think it's important to also recognize that through that discovery process that some people will need more than others, or more capacity or more speed than others, I should say. And that's really dependent on their job function, department that they work within, and also what the plan is ahead, and just kind of bringing in the Windows 10 kind of end of support and moving to Windows 11. Are you doing it to achieve the Windows 11 minimum requirements? So effectively, it's could be a short-term solution, or should you have more capacity or speed, whether that's memory or storage, in order to make best use of a new operating system, which by next year they will have to use.
Right. And I guess, I suppose, many of the existing sort of laptops, workstations out there will be upgradable. So I think that is the beauty, that they can replace that. And that is another option, rather than having to sort of buy brand new. So if people are assessing those strategies, and let's face it, costs will come into that, then there is an alternative solution that can take them through to the next life cycle. I mean, that just thinking about it, what typically is the life cycle of a standard sort of a refresh cycle? Elliott, I think that's obviously something we've spoken about before, but if you can just, inform users, so that might give them the oh, that's coming up, and it might be the prompt they needed.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think traditionally we're talking anywhere between 3 and 5 years. Now, I think with the pandemic, obviously there was quite a huge influx of PC and laptop acquisition, certainly on the laptop side, as organizations started to facilitate remote working, or hybrid working at the very least. This does mean that a lot of those devices are becoming kind of latter stages of their refresh. So that's why it's very important to kind of go, okay, well, again, discovery, really good term, Rafi, thank you. But it's really important to understand, okay, do we have a mixture of devices? What do we need in order to achieve the kind of baseline, or at least the minimum requirements for Windows 11? So the other thing is the TPM 2.0 chipset. So as long as you have those and quite a fairly modern CPU, you should be good to upgrade both the memory and the storage.
That's wonderful, thank you. And I guess probably we've covered AI. We've done Windows 11, which obviously we know is already out there, but the Windows 10 transition is looming, and we know that will come round quite quickly. I know we're starting to hear the buzz within our business here ourselves. So I think it is a topical thing at this moment in time. So I suppose, what advice would you both give to businesses looking to maximise their current investments whilst planning for AI advancement? So, Rafi, I'll come to you first.
Yeah, I think the most pragmatic thing is to put it all in manageable phases.
Mm-hmm.
They say if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. Well, the discovery exercise, you measure it, and in the run phase, you want to start doing something. Now, attempting to do everything at once, we know that's not the best way to proceed. So I think there is time. The thing to do is to make this plan, make it a phased plan, work out where these capabilities are really needed, and if they are needed. It's the case that so many things can be run in the cloud, especially with these older chipsets. That's really what's been happening a lot. I don't think that a cloud-only strategy is really the way things are going. So whilst it might be tempting to do that, the reality is that a lot of stuff is going to be being done locally. And you'll find that the software is going to start making demands of older pieces of kit that really make the user experience, and therefore, anything from service quality to go-to-market time for a new product that's going to go down. So working out where you're going to be affected first, how much that's really going to cost you, and where it's going to cost you, will allow you to make that phasing decision, and where you're going to bring AI functionality out of the cloud and start running it locally. It's going to probably be quite a small list at the beginning.
Right. And anything to add there, Elliott?
Yeah, I think again, there's a couple of paths that people can go down, as we've mentioned, either upgrading storage and memory and buying them some time, or replacing, and that might be their only option. I think on that point, I think a note is to overspec if at all possible, because the demands will grow. I think software applications that run on these machines will become more mature and demand more of the systems that they run upon. But actually having the ability to upgrade, I think that's also a very key component in terms of protecting yourself in terms of your investment if you do elect to go for AI PC. So avoiding soldered memory for now. I think so long as you have the ability to upgrade when things change in the future is key. And the same goes for storage as well. There's, depending on what applications you run, and the likelihood is they will be more demanding as they chew through more data to get the outputs that you desire. So yeah, I'd say these are kind of the main things that organizations should be looking out for, whether or not they elect to purchase AI PCs.
So finally, what should businesses be aware of to stay ahead of the curve in terms of technology adoption? Elliott, I'll come to you first.
Yes, so I think, well, with AI PCs specifically, I think fear of missing out could be a real driver, but also it could be a force for good in terms of finding out more, finding out what you need. How are you going to use it? How do you intend to use it? So I think it can be, it's usually a quite bad acronym, but actually turn it on its head and use that as a force for good. I think that's going to be a main thing, and drive that inquisitive nature in terms of learning about these technology advancements. I think obviously with AI PCs and AI in general, it's very much on a growth trajectory still. That I think with any new technology, understanding and recognizing its benefits, but then also having a clear plan in, okay, is it right for us? Should we be doing it? And if so, when should we be doing it? And factor in everything that we talked about today to bring it together so that you are making the right decisions for the right reasons, rather than blindly following a trend. And actually you may find your experience be quite poor. So yeah, that's really what, with the level of change that's ahead of us, I think those are key things to be mindful of.
Fabulous, thank you. And Rafi, anything to add?
Yeah, I think this is really exciting. You know, amongst all this talk about, you know, people worrying about it and all the rest of it and being scared, I think this is, you know, I use AI every day, whether it's something, you know, like a screen blur, fine, but actually, you know, I'm a creator. I like using the video and image tools, both for professional and for fun. I am excited by some of the business applications that I'm finding myself encountering. So, you know, people talk about this, the abilities of these, you know, the public face of AI is the GPT and Claude, and you know, the various other ones. We're seeing these rolled out into businesses now. So, you know, where you looked at data across an entire company, there were very specific tools that required very specific tool sets in order to get something out of them. Whereas now you can do the RAG thing, R-A-G, you know, and that is to say, fine tune an existing AI for a particular purpose, point it at particular data, and get it to do things from data visualization to finding efficiencies, you know, writing reports, all this stuff improving customer service. You know, if you think about all the product documentation that might exist for, you know, someone that makes TVs. Yeah, so many different models for so many different markets. You go on the website, how do you find out what to do about your one that's maybe, or which one to get? Previously, you'd get 567 documents and you don't really know which one to look at. And is that the right one? Well, AI search is a step change. So when we talk about key business processes like e-discovery, business intelligence, customer service, even customer self-service, because, you know, it can all be made available. I think this is tremendously exciting. Of course, and that is actually, you know, part of the rationale for bringing on, why are we talking about AI PCs? Why are they selling them? It's because this stuff is coming. So I would just invite you, the listener, viewer, to engage with it. Use something like Perplexity instead of Google next time you want to know something. You know, download stuff, see what happens. You know, you can. I did a thing where I showed it a bad picture of the contents of my fridge, and I said, I've got this in my fridge. You make some suggestions for dinner. Right, and then you say, well, I've got I've got a bunch of Thai spices in the other cupboard. Can I combine that? It's okay. You know, you're still doing stuff, but you've just got someone really smart to help you, and I think that's exciting as well. So don't find it scary. Engage is my viewpoint.
I like that. Be curious. Like that. Fabulous. Well, I mean, that's been really informative. I think we said earlier on that there is such a lot of sort of mixed information out there. So hopefully we've sort of highlighted some of the benefits of both AI and also looking to obviously extend the life of existing kits out there. So hopefully people will have a couple of options to consider in their life cycles. So but it's been really helpful. Thank you. I know you both have some really helpful resources on this topic, so we'll make sure that we include those for anybody wanting to find out more. But I'll leave it here. I'll say thank you both for joining us and sharing your insights with us today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us. Pleasure.
Thank you, Mel.
Take care. Bye.
Thanks, bye.